Welcome to The Broken Truth. This podcast was born out of a simple but powerful question. What if history we're taught is incomplete? What if the world's most powerful events aren't random, but shaped by hidden hands? I'm your host, Garrett. Like many of you, I've always been fascinated by what some call conspiracy theories, such as the Illuminati, the Freemasons, government cover-ups, scandals that shake the elite, and whispers of civilizations long forgotten. But here's the thing. Behind every rumor, every theory, there are fragments of truth, broken pieces scattered across history, culture, and politics. Our mission here is to gather those pieces, examine them without fear, and ask the questions that others avoid. This is not about blind belief, and it's not about dismissing everything as fantasy. The Broken Truth is about standing in the middle, between skepticism and curiosity, and searching for the reality behind the myth. Each episode during Season 1, we're going to dive deep into one subject, from the Bavarian Illuminati to the Freemasons and America's founding, from the CIA's mind control experiments to the scandal of Jeffrey Epstein, and even into the mysteries of suppressed ancient knowledge. This is a journey into the shadows of history and power, where facts meet speculation, and where the truth, however uncomfortable, demands to be uncovered. Because in the end, the truth is rarely whole. It's fractured, hidden, manipulated, and only by piecing it together can we begin to see the bigger picture. This is The Broken Truth. So once again, welcome back to The Broken Truth. Today we start at a name that's equal parts myth, accusation, and obsession, which is the Illuminati. Some people use the word like a punchline, quote unquote, the Illuminati did it, while others whisper it like a true danger. A hidden cabal pulling strings behind governments, economies, even culture. Our mission in this episode is simple but exacting. To go deep, we'll trace the real origins of the Bavarian Illuminati. We'll separate facts from the tales that grew around them. We'll map how the myth migrated through history into modern pop culture. And critically, we'll try to understand why so many people refuse to accept that powerful clandestine forces might exist, even when evidence suggests influence and secrecy are real features of history. This is not an episode of blind belief. It's not a hatchet job either. It's an attempt, rigorous, skeptical, and curious, to follow the evidence and explain the psychology of secrecy. So let's begin. In 1776, the same year as American independence, a small, remarkably modern-sounding experiment began far from the Atlantic in the conservative Catholic electorate of Bavaria. Its architect was Adam Weishaupt, a law professor at the University of Ingolstadt. Weishaupt was influenced by Enlightenment ideas: reason over superstition, civic liberty over clerical domination. He wanted to accelerate reform, but he also thought open activism was easily crushed by the political and religious powers of the day. So he chose secrecy. On May 1st, 1776, Weishaupt founded what he called the Order of the Illuminati. Its stated aims, at least in surviving statutes and internal documents, were to oppose superstition, arbitrary power, and the influence of the church in public life. But its structure and recruitment were modeled on existing secret societies, especially Freemasonry. Graded degrees, ritualized advancement, cell-like recruitment. Weishaupt explicitly borrowed from Masonic reforms while trying to advance a distinctly Enlightenment and, in some accounts, Republican agenda. Weishaupt recruited from among the educated elite professors, lawyers, officials, some nobles. The idea was pragmatic. Place reform-minded people inside existing institutions and gently steer them toward Enlightenment ideals. At its peak, contemporary letters and later estimates put membership in low thousands across German lands, enough to attract attention but not to immediately topple power structures. Crucially, the Bavarian Illuminati was local and time-bound. It grew in a particular cultural context, made alliances with certain Masonic networks, and importantly provoked the guardians of order. By the early 1780s, conservative authorities and the Catholic hierarchy saw subversive danger in its methods and ideas. A series of edicts outlawed by the society, and by 1785, the order had been suppressed. Weishaupt forced into exile, and many members dispersed. That formal suppression is well documented. So now that we've covered the origins of the Illuminati, let's talk about the anatomy of the order and how it worked. So understanding what the Illuminati actually did helps separate the plausible from the fantastical. Weishaupt's order used graded degrees, somewhat like Masonic lodges, novices, intermediate levels, and inner core who handled strategy and recruitment. Members swore oaths and adhered to secrecy protocols. Importantly, many members retained their public roles, judges, academics, administrators, while affiliating with the order in private. The appeal? Probably influence without the vulnerability of public agitation. Their methods were primarily ideological and social, not paramilitary. The stated program emphasized education, moral reform, and the undermining of obscurantist religious power. A classical Enlightenment project. There is no credible historical evidence that the Bavarian Illuminati had a global plan to conquer nations or run world finance. Their documented activity looks more like a secret reform club trying to nudge elites. That said, tactics of secrecy, using cells, coded correspondence, and the gradual elevation of members, create fertile ground for rumor. Secrets breed speculation, and in environments of political anxiety, rumors can be weaponized. The Illuminati's methods, therefore, had consequences that extended beyond their actual intentions. From history to myth, let's trace how the myth began. The transformation from a relatively short-lived Bavarian organization to the global Illuminati conspiracy started very quickly, and often from anti-Illuminati literature itself. In 1979, Scottish scientist John Robinson published Proofs of a Conspiracy, a panicked and influential pamphlet arguing that the Illuminati had infiltrated Freemasonry and orchestrated revolutionary movements across Europe, including the French Revolution. Robinson's book spread a narrative that a single secret society was behind modern upheaval, precisely the kind of reductive, totalizing story that sticks. Robinson's account mixed documented facts with interference, fear, and often a misreading of complex political causes. His work is widely credited with the launching modern Illuminati conspiracy lore. Add to Robinson the political climate. Post-revolutionary Europe was terrified of sedition. Conservatives, clerics, and monarchs wanted clear villains, claiming that a hidden, reason-driven cult had secretly engineered revolutions was convenient and terrifying. Thus, the Illuminati moved in public imagination from a suppressed Bavarian club to a cosmic villain. Over the 19th and 20th centuries, fiction and political polemic fed each other. Novelists, sensationalist writers, and later pop culture repackaged the basic Robinson frame into even larger stories. A shadowy cabal controlling banking, politics, culture. That's why modern references to the Illuminati are often more symbolic than historical. So here are some of the common claims assessed. Claim number 1, the Illuminati orchestrated the French Revolution and subsequent global revolts. So it's probably unlikely. The French Revolution had complex social, economic, and political causes, fiscal crisis, class tensions, ideological ferment, while some individuals sympathetic to Enlightenment ideas may have had Illuminati ties. There's no documentary evidence that the Bavarian order centrally planned or materially directed the revolution. The linkage is largely rhetorical and speculative. David Robinson's 1797 claims amplified coincidences into causation. Claim number 2, the Illuminati merged with Freemasonry and controls governments today. So this is something that we don't have solid proof on. The Illuminati borrowed Masonic structures and did liaise with certain Masonic lodges, but mainstream historians treat Freemasonry and the Illuminati as distinct phenomena. Freemasonry was broad and diverse, not a monolithic front for a secret single cabal. While secretive networks can facilitate influence, that's a far cry from a single hierarchical global control system. So, hard to say whether or not they did merge. Claim number 3 being that modern elites use the quote-unquote Illuminati symbolism to signal membership. So this is partly true as a cultural trope. Symbols like the eye, pyramids, and triangles do have layered meanings: religious, Masonic, national iconography. Public figures sometimes use these images for mystique or marketing that does not by itself prove occult membership or control. Symbol use is ambiguous. It can be playful, aesthetic, or referential rather than conspiratorial. Claim number 4. There's an ongoing coordinated quote-unquote Illuminati program that eliminates elections, markets, and media. This extraordinary claim needs extraordinary evidence. While we can point to genuine episodes of elite collusion, lobbying, and undemocratic influence, and these are absolutely worth investigating, the evidence for a single continuous, globally coordinated Illuminati is absent from the historical record. What we do have is scattered cases of institutional capture and secrecy, which is different in quality and scope from the conspiracy narrative. So, the historical Illuminati absolutely existed in Bavaria from roughly 1776 to the mid-1780s. The modern Illuminati, as a single world dominating cabal, is largely an amalgam created by political polemic fiction and decades of rumor. But that does not mean secret influence and elite coordination does not exist. They do in many concrete forms: lobbying, patronage networks, and intelligence operations, just not as the single labeled Illuminati of internet memes as we know today. So how has this myth persisted through culture, literature, and the internet? After Robinson, the story never stopped morphing. Writers like the authors of the Illuminatus trilogy and later thrillers like Dan Brown's Angels and Demons gave the idea of a secret symbolic order enormous popular legs. Pop music, film, and internet culture turned the Illuminati into aesthetic shorthand for secrecy and elite power. The image of a single hidden hand is narratively satisfying. It reduces messy historical causation into a tidy villain. In the internet era, social media accelerates and amplifies fragments into grand narratives. A coincidental handshake at a photo op, a dollar bill symbol, or a cryptic lyric becomes quote-unquote evidence. Algorithms reward sensational claims. The modern Illuminati is as much of a product of cultural storytelling and attention economics as of any historical continuity. So now the key question that needs to be addressed: why does much of society refuse to accept that secret powerful groups can, and sometimes do, shape events? And conversely, why do others readily believe in grand secret conspiracies? There are multiple interacting reasons, one being cognitive comfort and complexity avoidance. Many prefer explanations that match existing worldviews. Complex, multi-casual history is uncomfortable. Believing in deliberate malevolence simplifies the world. It gives a single answer. Michael Barkin describes this tendency in A Culture of Conspiracy. Conspiracists prefer design over randomness and embrace hierarchical super-conspiracies. 2 being institutional trust and lived experience. People who trust institutions, such as media, academia, and government, are less likely to believe in sweeping conspiracies. Conversely, groups with historic grievance or who've experienced discrimination, for example, Black Americans with documented institutional abuses like the Tuskegee experiment, show much higher levels of suspicion toward these institutions. Surveys by Pew and reporting by organizations document these divergent patterns. Distrust is often rational, grounded in real historical abuses. 3 being psychological needs: control, certainty, and social identity. Psychologists point to epistemic, which is a need to understand, existential, which is a need for safety control, and social, which is a need for belonging. So again, psychologists point to these motivations behind conspiratorial thinking. The APA's coverage and research syntheses describe how people under stress or who feel powerless often turn to conspiracy explanations to restore a sense of order. 4 being information ecosystems and echo chambers. Social media creates echo chambers where sensational or confirmatory claims propagate rapidly. Algorithms amplify content that elicits strong emotions, outrage, fear, and curiosity, which makes conspiracy narratives especially viral. Time, The Guardian, and other outlets have documented how online platforms accelerate the spread and normalization of conspiracy theories into mainstream discourse. The paradox of secrecy, which is going to be the 5th. Secrecy itself creates a credibility loop. If an allegation is hard to disprove because evidence is hidden or destroyed, then disbelief can either be rational suspicion, which there's no evidence, or motivated denial, which is I don't want to believe it. The history of real secret abuses, for example, MK Ultra or COINTELPRO, shows secrecy has sometimes concealed real wrongdoing, which reinforces suspicion about other plausible but proven claims. This feedback loop is what keeps the Illuminati myth alive. Real historical secrecy breeds reasonable fear, which fuels speculative claims. So, rejection of the idea of secret power is not uniform. For many, denial arises from a combination of trust in institutions, cognitive preference for complexity, or political and social alignment. For others, belief in secret elites springs from personal or collective experience, cognitive tendencies, and media environments that reward sensational patterns. Let's talk about some practical takeaways from all of this and how to think about secret power. If you want to be someone who evaluates Illuminati-style claims rather than simply accept or reject them, here are some practical steps. Step 1, being demand evidence and specificity. Broad claims, such as they're controlling everything, are unfalsifiable. Ask who, when, how, and with what documents. Step 2, being differentiate influence from omnipotence. Powerful actors form networks, lobbying groups, think tanks, transitional alliances, but that's different from monolithic control. The first is real. The second is rarely supported by robust evidence. Step 3 being check primary sources. Read original documents, edicts, correspondence. Secondary summaries are useful, but can introduce bias. From the Bavarian Illuminati, read contemporary edicts and the group's own statutes as a starting point. Step number 4, being pay attention to motive and method. Why would someone invent an Illuminati explanation? Reputation, political gain, or rhetorical advantage often drives such invention. Understanding motive helps evaluate credibility. Step number 5 being hold both curiosity and skepticism at once. Curiosity drives investigation, skepticism guards against easy narratives. You can be both a seeker and a fact checker. Well, that brings us to the end of episode 1 of The Broken Truth. We've traced the real Bavarian Illuminati, contrasted history with myth, and dug into why secrecy becomes a story that refuses to die. If you want to go deeper, I'll include primary sources and recommended reading in the show notes. Next episode, we'll look at Freemasonry and the Founding Fathers, the overlapping symbols the personal membership of prominent revolutionaries, and how ritual and fraternity shaped early American political culture. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, share, and send questions or documents you want me to examine. I will read them on air, and if you disagree, tell me why. The Broken Truth wants debate grounded in evidence. Until then, I'm your host, Garrett. Keep your lights on and your skepticism sharp.